Welcome to Baker's channel where stories unfold, covering trials, dramas untold. Grab your seats, settle in, start the show. Courtroom clashes, the fun we bestow. Baker's channel, action's hot, dramas and fun, all we've got. Discuss, debate, break it down. Baker's channel, just the best in town. Lawyers spar, tensions high, sparks fly. We laugh, we learn, dive into the why. Join the chat, have your say, it's your place too. Every twist, we're here for you. Baker's channel, action's hot, draws and fun, all we got. Discuss, debate, break it down. Baker's channel, just the best in town. Stay and please join the crowd. Baker's channel, we're live and loud.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome back to quite a surprise. I had just finished my stream, then my phone started going off is what it's called, because Marissa had become aware that Matthew Farwell have been indicted in the unaliving of Sarah Birchmore. That death was previously ruled as suicide. Oh, I can't say those words on YouTube. I really have to think about it. For those of you who might not know about this case, a young girl enrolls in a volunteer youth program with a police department that we know far too well. She gets, what is it you call it? She gets, can we say the G word? Not the grape, but they apparently start having smacks with her when she's 15, which is a year below the legal age. At the time of her unaliving, she's pregnant. She's pregnant with Farrell's kid. And it was ruled a self-deletion by she put a piece of rope on a doorknob. This was investigated by all the people who we know from the Karen Reed case. And now the feds everyone talked about in the Karen Reed case, thinking about why didn't they swoop in? Now they swept in on this one, leading into this. United States of America v. Matthew Farwell. Count 1. Unaliving a witness or victim. As Jess points out, they are claiming she's a witness or victim, which could mean she was already talking to the feds before this happened. Was the DNA proved as his kid? I don't know this case. I believe it was proven to be his kid. He was allegedly at her apartment that night to break off with her because the next day he got his kid with his wife, and that's why she self-deleted. But let's read the indictment. It's going to be a lot of reading. There will be a press conference at 1:45. I'm a little after yesterday. I don't know I'll I'll PDA will probably tell me someone has it, and I'll try and do it. If I get yeeted, well, it's 7 days vacation for me. Um, there will be a press conference, and he will be arraigned in court at 2:30 today. I have been thinking about this while I was eating. I think everyone has been focused on, well, the feds were in Massachusetts looking at the Karen Reed case. I think the Karen Reed case more likely came up while they were looking at uh, this one. Came up while looking at this, especially because of the victim witness status. I think they might have been looking into what happened to Sandra Birchmore. And with all the names you will see in this case, you will see a great overlap of players from the Karen Reed case. Um, he was a couple of hours before, but no DNA was done, Baker. Oh, sorry. Sandra said it was it. Yeah, that's how it was. But general allegations. Between or on or about March 27 and or about April 1st, defendant Matthew Farrell was a sworn officer of the Stoughton Police Department in Stoughton, Massachusetts. In his capacity as a Stoughton police officer, Farrell also served as an instructor for the Stoughton Police Explorers Academy, Police Explorers, which was a vocational educational program for local youth. The Police Explorers was designated to enable youth participants to learn about law enforcement careers. Sandra Birchmore was born on May 1997. In or around March 2010, Sandra Birchmore applied to be a participant in the Police Explorers. At that time, Birchmore was 12 years old. She began participating in the program in or around the spring of 2010 and remained in the program through in and around 2016. Prior to in or around 2012, Farrell was a police explorers volunteer. He became an instructor when he started working for the Stoughton Police Department in 2012. Uh, Before Birchmore attained the age of 16 years old, Farrell engaged in sexual intercourse and other sex acts with Birchmore. Farrell's sexual contact with Birchmore continued until in or around early 2021. The Stoughton Police Department requires employees, including police officers, to accurately report their time and attendance in order to receive wages and overtime. During some of the shift when Farrell was supposed to be performing his duties as a Stoughton police officer, he was instead engaged in sex acts with Birchmore. He failed to disclose that information to the Stoughton Police Department, and he took steps to conceal his conduct from other department employees. In or around December 2020, Birchmore learned that she was pregnant. Birchmore told Farrell that he was the father of the child. On or about January 20th, 2021, Birchmore's friend called the Stoughton Police Department and told a department employee that Farrell had been having sex with Birchmore. Shortly thereafter, a Stoughton Police Department employee told Farrell about the call. On or about February 1st, 2021, Farrell unalived Birchmore by strangulation. Shortly thereafter, Farrell staged Birchmore's Canton, Massachusetts apartment, Canton, to make it appear as if Birchmore had self-deleted. The count one, unaliving of a witness or victim. The grand jury charges. The grand jury realleges and incorporates by reference the allegations in paragraphs 1 through 8 of this indictment. On or about February 1st in Canton, in the District of Massachusetts, the defendant Matthew Farrell did unalive Sarah Birchmore, a person known to the grand jury, with malice, aforethought, willfully, deliberately, maliciously, and with premeditation, and with the intent to prevent the communication by any person to a law enforcement officer of information relating to the commission or possible commission of a federal offense, to wit, commission or possible commission of the federal offense of deprivation of right under color of law in violation of blah, 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 and wire fraud in violation of blah. All violation of Title 18 United States Code, Section 1512. Signed by the foreperson and Assistant U.S. State Attorney's Districts of Massachusetts. So he has been through his case has been through a grand jury, and they have now charged him with this unaliving of a poor girl who, I'm not sure we can say the G word on YouTube. I have to figure out another one, but who they clearly, in my opinion, made ready to be their smex toy. Not only him, but multiple others, as far as I know, have had relationships with this poor woman. I have little faith real justice will be served. Massachusetts is corrupt. Hey, Joe, if you look at the bottom of this one, it's Assistant U.S. States Attorneys. This is a federal case. It's not Massachusetts. Federal case. This is the feds. The feds everyone was talking about in the Karen Reed case have now, in this case, struck down one of the bastards that apparently has a really easy job getting a job in Massachusetts. This is from earlier today when he was apprehended. They were out in full force. Looks like he has his kid with him. But we also have a motion of detention. And this just after. Sorry, I just adjusted something. They indicted him yesterday, but had it sealed till he was in custody. Thank you. There'll be action in the Karen Reed case soon after this, I'm convinced. Well, I think tonight when the Young Jerks goes on, they will have better row. He'll probably be able to do a more legal analysis on this. I don't have any knowledge of that part. Turtle Boy knew it was coming because early this morning he put out sure would be a good day for him to be arrested. Yeah. Used federal SWAT team got him shopping at the mall. Saving his child, probably. This should also have the McAlpins shaking their boots because it's taken this long to build this case and arrest, much longer than the one with Reed. Yes. No, I didn't spell with wrong. It's just my keyboard didn't pick it up. Sorry, Peter A. Marissa, the live feed. Thank you. That's directly from the United States Attorney's Office, so I can do that. They can't ding that one. Mark Benero is on vacation until the end of the week. I have seen him very active right now on Twitter. I would think a lot of people will get. A lot of people will cover this today because this, I think, will have ramification for a lot of it. Oh, something else I wanted to show you. Marissa sent me this. I'm not sure where it's from. Birchmore and Matthew Farwell exchanged approximately 32,709 text messages between December 2019, when she was 22, and her unaliving, according to a search warrant affidavit prepared by State Police Lieutenant John Fanning. In the messages, investigators said they learned that Matthew Farrell allegedly began having sex with Birchmore in April 2013 and continued to do so through at least 2020. The messages showed Birchmore and Matthew Farrell coordinating plans to meet clandestinely at a hotel, Costco, Birchmore's family home in Stoughton, and her apartment in Canton Fanning Road. Investigators didn't find any communications between Matthew Farrell and Birchmore on his phones. State police records showed he told troopers he deleted all their messages after he left her apartment on February 1st. And then we have this one from August 2021 to Detective Lieutenant Jared R. Mattiolano from Sergeant John M. Fanning. Fanning is also, I believe, how is he? He's connected to the Reed case by. Oh, this is the news article from the Globe. He's connected to the Reed case. He did some extractions there too, I believe. No, this is. Oh, sorry. I'm getting it all confused because I read so much. On February 9th, Matthew Farrell consented to a data extraction on his personal iPhone 11, which was then extracted by trooper Nick Guarino. That's the guy, Nick Guarino. He's the guy who did the extractions in the Karen Reed case. On April 26th, I received Matthew's work cell phone from Stoughton Police Department. Through Matthew's attorney, consent was given for a data extraction, which was performed by trooper Nick Guarino. I analyzed both of these phones and did not find any communications with Sarah Birchmore. Matt had said in a previous interview that he had deleted all communication. But that's Nick Guarino. He's also connected to this case now. Melanie Little has a live schedule later to discuss. She can give you more on the law stuff because she's a lawyer. That's exactly the same Cellbrite guy who touched every phone in the Karen Reed case. But if he did data extraction with Cellbrite, he should be able to at least get some of those deleted text backs. That's what we learned. Cellbrite can at least show you that they were deleted. He saw no evidence. They made it a point to rally around that girl and made her amenable to their desires. Disgusting. Yes. 18 USC 242 max penalty unaliving. Bet he wished he had Higgins' connection to get rid of any phone data. Probably would. Yeah, and the feds could find it, but Trooper Guarino is so inept that he couldn't do it. Or didn't he look good enough? How's long to send 32,000 messages in the snow? Well, he had some years to do it because this creep started having sex with a 15-year-old girl. 15. The legal age of consent in Massachusetts is 16. I don't know how the rules are in the US. Our legal age is 15 with someone who is below 18. So if two 15-year-olds go at it, they can consent. Technically, someone above 18 can legally be with a 15-year-old, but it's highly frowned upon. That's not something we see. Yeah, he used his own program made by that British guy. I bet you this is what the feds were doing in Massachusetts. Everyone thought it was Karen Reed. I think Karen Reed was a byproduct of all of this. Inept is a euphemism for unwilling. Thank you. Yeah, hope his wife is just as proud as Trooper Proctor's wife. It's 16 with someone below 21 in Massachusetts. That seems fair. Neither can I. My audio should. Oh, it's because we turned it down because the low stream. Now it should be way better. The arraignment will be at 2:30. The press conference will be in 12 minutes. The arraignment will be at 2:30. As the person who stood for the police aspirant training program, he would have been in a position of authority towards her, and then the age legality moves to 18 in Denmark. Actually, it'll change. It'll, yeah, we know it from our lovely former foreign minister who also slept with a 15-year-old. He would have a rule of authority, so he actually should be charged, but he was a politician, so no problem. Well, I'm sorry. I do everything Lexi tells me. But let's read this one. United States motion for and memorandum in support of a pre-trial detention. Defendant Matthew Farwell, a former Stoughton police officer, had been charged with unaliving Sarah Birchmore to prevent her from communicating information about his commission or possible commissions of federal crimes in violation of 18 U.S.C. paragraph 1512. The government moves to detain Farrell pending trial because he's a danger to community and poses a serious risk of flight and obstruction. The court is authorized to conduct a detention hearing and detain Farrell on each of those independent bases because Farrell has been charged with a crime of violence that carries a mandatory life sentence. So, not unaliving, mandatory life. First, there is a serious risk if released, the defendant will obstruct or attempt to obstruct justice. That risk is not merely theoretical. On February 1st, 2021, Farrell unalived Birchmore, a young pregnant woman whom he had spent years sexually exploiting. Farwell's grisly crime was designed to conceal forever the truth about his years of criminal conduct targeting Birchmore. Moreover, even apart from his murder of Birchmore, unaliving, Farrell has tried to destroy and conceal evidence of his criminal conduct. Prior to her unaliving, Farrell instructed Birchmore to delete from her phone evidence that he had sexual intercourse with her before her 16th birthday. After the unaliving, he researched how to delete data from his own phone, and he took steps to conceal the unaliving, including by repositioning Birchmore's lifeless body and staging her apartment to make the young woman's death appear to be self-deletion, and lying to Massachusetts state police detectives who were initially responsible for investigating Birchmore's death. Second, Farrell's release would pose a profound danger to the community. He has been charged with the intentional, premeditated unaliving of a young person he knew for years. He strangled her to death when he knew she was several weeks pregnant. He did so while he was serving as a police officer, and after using that position of trust and authority to, it's probably bad, groom and sexually exploit her for years, beginning when she was just 15 years old. There are no conditions of release that will protect the community from a defendant whose conduct reveals such indifference to human life. This isn't just well, maybe you should look at this guy and make sure that everything is hunky dory. This is a really bad guy. No, they didn't test the fetus. Third, Farwell is a serious risk of non-appearance. As described in detail below, the unaliving followed a report to Stoughton police that disclosed aspects of Farrell's illicit sexual relationship with Birchmore. With Farrell on notice that he could soon face consequences for his criminal conduct, he decided to unalive Birchmore. Today, the potential consequences could hardly be more severe or imminent. Farwell faces a mandatory life sentence for unaliving Birchmore. The weight of evidence is overwhelming. These circumstances provide him with a significant disincentive to appear for trial. As such, there are no conditions that will reasonably assure he will appear at trial to face the evidence and consequences of his conduct. It's Farwell. Okay. The government proffers the following facts in support of its motion to detain the defendant and submits the supporting declaration of FBI Special Agent Chini Kestruita. The defendant is a 38-year-old and resides in northeastern Massachusetts with his spouse and children. Both he and his spouse possess license to carry. There are 10 pew-pews registered on their home. Farwell served in the U.S. Army from 2004 to 2008. During that time, he served as an explosive expert. Farwell became a sworn police officer in 2008. He first served from 2008 to 2012 as a police officer for the town of Wellesley, Massachusetts. On March 27, Farwell became a Stoughton police officer, a position he held until he resigned on April 1st, 2022. While a member of the Stoughton Police Department, Farwell also served as a firearms and explosives instructor. The Stoughton Police Explorers Academy. Prior to 2017, the Stoughton Police Department operated the Stoughton Police Explorers Academy, hereinafter the Police Explorers, a quasi-paramilitary program designed to expose youth participants to various aspects of policing. Farwell was a volunteer for the program when he was a Wellesley police officer. After he joined the Stoughton Police Department, Farwell became a police explorers instructor. In March 2010, Birchmore applied to be a participant in the Police Explorers. At the time, she was 12 years old. She began participating in the program in or around the spring of 2010. She remained in the program through 2016. Farwell was her instructor during that time period. The offense: Farwell groomed and sexually exploited Birchmore when she was a child. As a police officer, Farwell groomed and sexually exploited Birchmore when she was a child. As early as 2012, he began communicating with Birchmore online, including befriending her on Facebook. At the time, he was 26 years old. She was just 15. While using the internet to lay the groundwork for his child sexual exploitation, Farwell would also meet Birchmore at the Stoughton Police Library, where he would sexually groom her under the guise of providing academic tutoring. Ultimately, he engaged in sex acts with Birchmore, violating the Massachusetts statutory rape law by having sexual intercourse with her in 2013 when she was 15. This is an act of statutory rape, had several attendant aggravating factors, such as the age disparity between Farwell and Birchmore and Farwell's position of power and trust. B. Farwell continued to exploit Birchmore when she became an adult. Farwell continued having sex with Birchmore after she became an adult and while he remained employed as a police officer. Building off years of grooming, Farwell later cultivated a controlling and sometimes abusive relationship with Birchmore. He tracked her location with his cell phone and, as voluminous text messages demonstrate, he engaged in sexual violence. C. Farwell had sex with Birchmore while on duty. Farwell exploited Birchmore while on duty as a police officer. At times, he met Birchmore to have sex with her while he was on duty and being paid by the town of Stoughton. Does that make him a prostitute being paid to have sex? Of course, these are facts that Farwell concealed from the Stoughton Police Department in an effort to continue receiving his salary, notwithstanding his misconduct. D. In December 2020, Farwell learned that he had impregnated Birchmore. In October 2020, Birchmore told Farwell that she wanted a child of her own. Farwell and Birchmore reached an agreement. He would try and impregnate Birchmore in exchange for his silence about his criminal conduct and years-long extramarital affair. In late December 2020, just a month before Birchmore died, she learned that she was pregnant. Birchmore told Farwell that he was the child's father, and Farwell responded poorly. He became physically violent versus Birchmore. She told multiple friends that Farwell had pushed and shoved her, grabbed objects from her hand, and put her in a chokehold. Hmm. This is really not that fun to read. Uh, what document am I reading? It is the motion on detention. Yeah, he's a good vet. But yeah, they're going to start in a minute in court, probably in a minute at the hearing. I Can I share this? Can you hear the audio? Well, there's a slight fluttering audio in the background, but it's just because sometimes StreamYard won't carry, so I just want to know if I have to restart it. Well, let's keep reading because I don't hate my life enough. In January 2021, Farwell learned that information about his year-long illicit sexual contact with Birchmore had been disclosed to the Stoughton Police Department and others. In January 2021, Farwell learned that despite Birchmore's getting the pregnancy she wanted, he would not be able to control her or the information that she possessed about his crimes. On January 20, a friend of Birchmore called the Stoughton Police Department and disclosed information about Farwell's sexual contact with Birchmore. When a Stoughton Police Department employee told him about the call, Farwell again responded poorly. He angrily demanded that the employee never tell anyone about the information. Good luck with that one. In late January 2021, Farwell began planning the unaliving of Sandra Birchmore. By late January 2021, text messages between Farwell and Birchmore revealed that Farwell was enraged by what he perceived as Birchmore not upholding her end of the pregnancy for silence agreement. Moreover, he had learned that Birchmore had shared with at least one other person some of the incriminating details about his sexual relationships with Birchmore, and that information had been disclosed to his employee, a law enforcement agency. In a text on January 20th, he asked Birchmore, "What else do I have to worry about now? Which other friend will do something tomorrow?" An allusion to his fear that she may disclose more information about his possible commission of federal crimes, coercion and enticement, deprivation of right under the color of law, and wire fraud. On January 24, Farwell started to take important steps to obstruct justice by unaliving Birchmore. He asked Birchmore for a key to her apartment after previously being reluctant to having in his possession that kind of tangible, that's a word I can't say, proof of their relationship. And he asked Birchmore to keep it a secret that she had given him a key. On February 26, Farwell also started casing Birchmore's apartment, the future crime scene, searching for places to carry out their unaliving. He inspected her bathroom and closet, places where items could be hung. His behavior was strange enough that Birchmore told multiple friends that she was concerned. Get away, girl. On February 1st, Farwell went to Birchmore's apartment wearing a mask and uh, strangled her to death using a duffel bag strap. On February 1st, Farwell decided to act. For him, that day provided at least two advantages. A blizzard was approaching Greater Boston, ensuring that no one would notice Birchmore's absence from work from several days, and Farwell's wife was hours away from delivering their third child. This is an outstanding member of the community. Therefore, Farwell texted Birchmore to tell her that he was coming to her apartment. He entered her apartment wearing a face mask, despite being well known as a resistant to COVID-19 mask mandates. And he unalived Birchmore, the 23-year-old pregnant woman he had exploited and used for years by strangling her to death. Within minutes of silencing Birchmore, video surveillance footage show him leaving her apartment. Additional evidence regarding Farwell's efforts to obstruct. In addition to the obstruction crime alleged in the indictment, there is evidence that Farwell took steps to conceal his criminal conduct before Birchmore's death and later to obstruct the murder investigation. Farwell directed Birchmore to delete electronic evidence of his crimes. Before Farwell unalived Birchmore, Farwell directed her to delete evidence of their sexual relationship. This was evidence that he raped Birchmore when she was 15 and that he had engaged in sexual violence. For example, in February of 2019, Farwell exchanged text messages with Birchmore. How do they know? Because remember, Trooper Giuliani couldn't get any of these texts. With Birchmore, in which they discussed her virginity, and he acknowledged that it was a big thing to get to be the first. In March 2019, the defendant asked Birchmore, "What would you have done if we never used a condom and I never pulled out?" Birchmore reassured Farwell that she would have still finished school. A few months after that, on June 5th, 2019, Farwell directed Birchmore to make sure all of their text and Facebook messages had been deleted. In another text conversation, Farwell discussed the first time he and Birchmore had sex. Farwell sent a text someone's talking. Farwell sent a text indicating he would have liked to have sex with Birchmore when she was even younger, saying, "You should have told me we could have oct so much sooner." After sending that text, Farwell quickly instructed Birchmore, clear that out, part out, baby." And when she confirmed that she did so, he texted, "Good girl." Farwell also wanted to ensure that Birchmore would delete text messages in which they discussed his violence. For example, on March 19, 2019, the defendant sent Birchmore text about his desire to use sexual violence and to... Can you hear the audio?
Farwell 3 days earlier. At the time of her death, Sandra Birchmore was a 23-year-old woman with her entire life ahead of her, and she was pregnant with her first child. We allege that Sandra Birchmore survived years of grooming, statutory rape, and then sexual violence, all at the hands of Matthew Farwell, who was employed throughout their relationship as an officer and then detective for the Stoughton Police Department. And when it became clear to Mr. Farwell that he could no longer control Sandra Birchmore, he allegedly silenced her permanently. This morning, Matthew Farwell was arrested on a federal grand jury indictment, charging him with one count of killing a witness or victim. Specifically, Mr. Farwell is charged with violating Title 18 United States Code 1512 for killing Sandra Birchmore with the intent of preventing her from communicating information about his possible commission of federal crimes. How did this all unfold? What happened here? Well, back in 2010, a 12-year-old Sandra Birchmore applied to join the Stoughton Police Department's Explorers Program, which introduces teens to policing. Officer Matthew Farwell was an instructor in that program. And as alleged in court documents, he befriended Sandra Birchmore, contacted her online, went to the library with her, became friends on Facebook, essentially groomed her. And then he committed statutory rape by having sex with her when he was a 27-year-old police officer and she was just 15 years old. Mr. Farwell continued.
Don't tell me no one else knew. He won't be the only one. Don't tell me he was the only one who knew that happened.
To have a sexual relationship with Sandra Birchmore until her death 8 years later, allegedly meeting her for sex regularly when he was on duty and being paid by the Stoughton Police Department. Now, in the weeks leading up to Sandra Birchmore's death in February 2021, she found out that she was expecting a baby. And she told Mr. Farwell that he was the father. According to court documents, Ms. Birchmore was very excited about becoming a mother, buying baby clothes and other items, taking precautions to ensure the health of her new child. Sandra Birchmore had good friends. She had a good job. She had dreams of becoming a nurse, and she had a child on the way. But Mr. Farwell did not share in that excitement. It's alleged that Mr. Farwell reacted quite negatively to the news that Sandra Birchmore was pregnant with his child. And he acted angrily, it is alleged, when Sandra Birchmore started making requests of Mr. Farwell around doctor's appointments and ultrasounds and what information would be on the birth certificate. Mr. Farwell was losing control in late 2020, early 2021. And the information that Sandra Birchmore possessed about his illegal conduct was in danger of slipping out. In fact, word started to get out about their relationship. Less than 2 weeks before she was found dead, someone called the Stoughton Police Department and disclosed that Matthew Farwell had had a relationship with Sandra Birchmore. And when Mr. Farwell learned about that call, he became visibly angry. Mr. Farwell, it is alleged in these court papers, started to lose his patience, lose his temper, and the 6'4" Mr. Farwell started to be physically violent with 4'10" Sandra Birchmore. And Sandra Birchmore told her friends that Mr. Farwell had pushed.
I'm sorry, if he's that tall and she's that small, that guy, that part we just read, I hope we had done it sooner. That guy, he liked them young, if you know what I mean.
Her and shoved her and put her in a chokehold. She was scared. And during that same time, Mr. Farwell was allegedly planning Sandra Birchmore's murder. For the first time, he requested a key to.
The family is suing because they believe she was unalived, and that's why they got the second opinion on the autopsy, yes. And a lot of officers has been connected to this case.
Her apartment. And she told friends that he was oddly inspecting the apartment and looking at the closet, including the closet that she was found dead in front of. And then it all came to a head on February 1st, 2021. Mr. Farwell went over to her apartment that evening and he strangled Sandra Birchmore to death. That's the allegation in this case. And he used his knowledge and experience as a law enforcement officer to stage her death to look like a suicide. He allegedly attempted to cover his tracks to literally try and get away with murder. And he almost did until today. Back in 2021, with the information that was available, Sandra Birchmore's death was ruled a suicide or deemed a suicide. But over the last year or so, The FBI and our office have been working exhaustively with our state partners. We've uncovered critical new information, examined the existing information, all of which led to this federal grand jury indictment. If convicted on this charge, Mr. Farwell faces a minimum of life imprisonment. Giving voice to the voiceless, ensuring that no one is above the law, protecting the vulnerable people of Massachusetts, that's the highest calling of people in law enforcement. And this case represents those principles. And every day across Massachusetts, thousands of police officers, federal, state, local law enforcement, put their lives on the line to protect the people of Massachusetts.
This is exactly what I was talking about. You look 9. She looked really young as well. And I'm just saying, when they have a type, they have a type. And if you have those feelings, you don't just do it with one person.
Mr. Farwell violated those principles, and now he faces very grave consequences. It is disheartening to have to charge law enforcement officers, especially with crimes as serious. But it's our job at the Department of Justice to investigate potential crimes without fear and without favor. We do in this office what we've been doing for decades with our federal partners like the FBI. We follow the facts, regardless of where they lead. We apply the law and the principles of federal prosecution, full stop. We are not influenced by social media chatter. We are not influenced by politics. We're influenced by the facts and the law. Our mission is to do our level best to do justice in every case. And our mission today is to do justice for Sandra Birchmore.
Yes, Jess, I just read that part where he said, I had hoped I could have had you younger, when they talked about the first time.
Lastly, I want to note that we are sharing the information and the evidence that we developed in this case with the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, with the Massachusetts State Police, and with the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office, so they can assess whether state charges may be warranted in this situation. And I want to thank those 3 agencies. I also want to thank the Stoughton Police Department for their assistance in our investigation. Lastly, I want to commend the women and the men of the FBI Boston and Lakeville for their incredible work on this case. This was a dogged investigation. And as you look at the court papers, you'll see exactly how much work has gone into this matter. A huge credit to them. And I particularly want to thank the members of my office, the office I'm proud to lead, the victim witness advocates, paralegals, the chief of our human trafficking and civil rights unit, Liz Riley, Assistant United States Attorneys Tori Cummings and Brian Fogarty. This case doesn't happen without their passion for justice. They deserve the credit, not me. Now I want to turn it over to Steve Kelleher, the Assistant Special Agent in charge of FBI Boston.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephen Kelleher, Assistant Special Agent in charge of FBI Boston. At approximately 10:45 a.m. this morning, the FBI arrested former Stoughton police officer Matthew Farwell for allegedly taking the life of Sandra Birchmore in order to ensure her silence. The FBI SWAT team took him into custody at a shopping plaza in Revere without incident. Immediately following his arrest, we shared this significant development with Sandra's family. We know it does not ease their pain, but hopefully it answers some of their questions. Simply put, this case is about seeking justice for Sandra, who we believe was killed by Matthew Farwell after he allegedly groomed and sexually abused her when she was just 15 years old, violating her body and her civil rights. It's also about keeping Mr. Farwell from getting away with murder and from harming anyone else. We in law enforcement are entrusted with immense authority because our decisions can have life-changing consequences, both good and bad. To temper that power, we must adhere to the highest of ethical standards. What we believe Officer Matthew Farwell did, as outlined in today's indictment, is depraved and a gross betrayal of his sworn oath and the public's trust. Let me be clear. Matthew Farwell's gun and badge did not grant him authority to violate the Constitution. And it certainly didn't entitle him to sexually exploit, abuse, and rape a child before killing her and her unborn baby in an attempt to cover up his alleged crimes. What's also troubling is we believe Matthew Farwell staged Sandra's body and her apartment to make it look like she had died by suicide. And in the days that followed, this sworn police officer repeatedly lied to Massachusetts State Police investigators about the nature of their relationship. I don't know if you can see what's going on in the chat.
But there's a lot about the Karen Reed case over here. And some people, well, they looked into Karen's case for 2 years. They just looked at this for a month. No, they have been on this for a long time too, buddies. So maybe wait a second. And Josh Levy has already, before Karen's case started, wrote the court and said, we don't see the evidence in the same light Morrissey does. So hopefully more will come from it.
Stark contrast to the sheer excitement and pure joy that Sandra felt when she told Farwell that she was expecting his child, texting him a photo of a poster she had made celebrating the pregnancy. Our investigation also uncovered additional evidence that is inconsistent with someone choosing to die by suicide. In the hours leading up to Sandra's death, she reached out to a photographer to inquire about booking a newborn photo shoot. She also reached out to a friend about obtaining baby clothes. And at the time that she was in the middle of doing laundry when she died, with a load in the washing machine and another one in the dryer. There's no question this was a complex investigation, and our work is not done. Our agents, analysts, and financial investigators reviewed tens of thousands of text messages, emails, and financial records, conducted dozens of interviews with family, friends, and experts, and analyzed the crime scene. We urge anyone with information about the circumstances surrounding Sandra's death to contact the FBI. Committing murder to eliminate victims and witnesses is heinous, and it shakes the very core of our justice system, which depends on people truthfully testifying to what they know. Today's arrest shows that anyone who tries to interfere and retaliate against victims and witnesses in an attempt to subvert the rule of law will have to answer for it. After all, the public's trust is critical for our justice system to function properly. That's why the FBI will do everything in its power to bring to justice anyone who tries to undermine that trust. Our hearts go out to Sandra, to the Birchmore family, and all who knew and loved Sandra. On behalf of the FBI, I want to thank them for their cooperation, patience, perseverance, and fortitude. I also want to thank our agents and analysts for their hard work and dedication, Acting U.S. Attorney Josh Levy and his team for their partnership, and both Chief McNamara of the Stoughton Police Department and Colonel Mon with the Massachusetts State Police for their assistance in helping us move this investigation forward. Thank you.
Next, Dave.
Take some questions.
John, why did it take so long to go from suicide to finding suicide to now murder?
Well, I think when you have a chance to look through the court papers, you'll see how exhaustive this investigation is. Obviously, this is an incredibly serious charge. There was a lot of forensics and other evidence that had to be marshaled, expert witnesses, et cetera. So we move as fast as we can, and we also have a duty to get it right.
Was there a rush to find a suicide because this involved a police officer?
Yeah, our office wasn't involved in the initial determination of a suicide, so I can't speak to that.
You mentioned your office got involved about a year ago. What prompted that?
Yeah, we get leads on cases all the time from all different sources. I'm not going to comment on how we get information on how we got into this one.
As you said initially, this was considered a suicide, but it seems like there's a plethora of evidence to suggest otherwise. Surveillance, text messages. How was that all missed for the first 2 years?
Yeah, I'm only in a position to comment on what we've done on this investigation. Those questions are not something I'm able to answer to. We like I said,
Just to let everyone know, I can't hear what the journalists are asking about either. There's no microphone in the room, so I don't know what they ask.
in my comments, we started pulling this string and followed the evidence and got new evidence to put together the case we put together today.
What evidence tipped you off?
I'm sorry, sir.
What evidence led you to think?
It's you're never able to pick one piece of evidence that is the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's really an accumulation. We have to go in front of a jury, 12 citizens, and convince them beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Farwell is guilty. That's on us. He's presumed innocent today, and he will remain innocent until we meet that burden. But it's all the evidence in combination makes that case.
Did the state medical examiner's office plan to change the cause of death on her birth death certificate, and did you determine who the father of her unborn baby was?
Well, I'll take those in reverse order. I'm not going to comment on the second piece. What we have alleged in the court papers is that Ms. Birchmore told Mr. Farwell several times that he was the father. And your question about the state medical examiner, obviously, they don't report to me, and that's a question better directed to the state medical examiner.
Matthew is mentioned here, but we've heard reports over the years of several other officers. Have you guys conducted any other ongoing investigations related
So I think Assistant Special Agent in Charge Kelleher alluded to the fact this is an ongoing investigation. I'm not going to comment on what the other pieces are that we're looking into, but it's an active investigation. Shelley.
This is a death penalty eligible case. Is that on the table or is that already off the table?
Shelley, you're absolutely correct. The maximum penalty under this statute as charged is a sentence of death. And whether to seek the death penalty in a federal case is decided at the highest levels of the Department of Justice. That decision has not been made on whether the death penalty was sought in this case, and that process will continue, but I can't comment on it beyond that.
Would you favor that?
Not going to comment on it. It's a process that involves a lot of people at the Department of Justice, and I'm not going to share my view on this.
Did other officers in Stoughton or Stoughton government know about the underage sexual contact that Matthew Farwell was having with Sandra when it was going on in those early 2010, 11, 12, 13?
You know, I'm not going to comment on
Stace, this is a federal case. That's why the DP is on the table. And the question is, will he also be charged with the kid?
information. It's not in the public record. As you heard, this is an ongoing matter, so we're going to continue to look into this matter. And if there's other individuals that we develop evidence they've violated the federal law, we'll proceed.
Josh, can you touch on, I mean, murder, state usually is the one that handles murder charges. Obviously, feds have jurisdiction on many cases, but what made this one get to federal authorities? And do you think that the state officials watched this investigation?
You know, there's a lot of overlap in the law between the federal government has jurisdiction over and what the state government has jurisdiction over. When someone comes to our office with credible information that a police officer may have been involved in a murder and underlying legal violations as set forth in the indictment, we're going to investigate that case every time. They come in different shapes and sizes, but that is our
Celestial Force, not mentioned so far, other than the friend of Sandra, had reached out to the police department and talked to someone there. So at least one person knew, but we know from other transcripts and other reporting that more officers might have done stuff to her.
Our duty to the public is to pursue credible leads like that and investigate them fully.
To follow up on your question, we saw Lieutenant Toledo said earlier, this was Norfolk case first. You mentioned
Not at this point. He is the only one named today.
that they've been state partners throughout this. Does your office look into what may have went wrong in their investigation?
This case about what went wrong for Sandra Birchmore and how she was treated by Matthew Farwell and how he violated her rights and ultimately killed her. That's what this case is about. It's not about what happens at other state agencies. This is about justice for Sandra Birchmore.
This is the second major death investigation where your office has come to a different conclusion than Norfolk County DA. I'm sure you can't comment on that, but is that normal for federal prosecutors and state prosecutors to reach different conclusions on investigations?
So I'm here to talk about one case. We got about 1,000 cases in the office. I'm not going to comment on any other case in the office. I would just caution you to not extrapolate too much from one case out of all the things that are happening in our office.
This district has brought a charge of killing of a witness. I can't think of any others. I'm wondering if there are others.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. That's a question. That's an answer we could get for you, but I don't know the answer to it, Shelley. We bring charges of obstruction of justice frequently, as you know, but I'm not pulling one off the top of my head that matches this. Sorry. That's okay. Yeah, I'm not in a position to comment on things that are in the public record. That I wouldn't take that as yes or no. But I'm limited up here under local rules to talk about what's in the public record.
Can you talk about the arrest? What happened with the arrest this morning?
I'm going to ask ASAC Kelleher to speak to that.
So this morning we had a SWAT team that was in a location where Mr. Farwell was. He was taken into custody. He was driving a truck, gravel hauler, and he was safely taken into custody by the SWAT team, which is, what we strive to achieve every time we do an operation like this. No, he was in Revere.
not in a neighborhood in Revere, was it on the highway?
No, it was in a shopping plaza in Revere. Mhm.
Did he say anything?
We have not tried to interview him.
That, dump truck you're driving, is that his new employment? presumably?
Again, I wouldn't comment on that here at this time, but he was driving the dump truck when he was arrested.
Before your agency got involved, there were other agencies investigating this. Can we expect to see any fallout from those lead investigators from other agencies who were responsible for finding justice in this case and not?
I think the juncture we're at right now is that we are working with state agencies. We've developed, as I said, new information that we're going to share with our state partners. They're going to make decisions about what charges are appropriate under state law, if any.
Can you tell us who the lead investigator was in this case before your agency got involved?
I can tell you the lead investigator was for our matter, which was the FBI. I don't know. I honestly don't have information on who the lead was in a state investigation. I don't get that type of information.
You've said that you're not, you're looking just to investigate Sandra Birchmore's death. That's the focus of this case, not what law enforcement agencies prior to you did. Is that within your jurisdiction to investigate what those state agencies did?
I think what I said was I'm here to talk about Sandra Birchmore, and I'm not here to talk about other things that are happening in the United States Attorney's Office. It's 125 federal prosecutors doing a lot of different things. In this case, this press conference is about one young woman who we allege, was killed by a Stoughton police officer, Matthew Farwell.
Saying how your investigation might be complicated by the fact that you're going now into federal court where there is this, and you found that it was suicide, the Norfolk County DA's office opted not to pursue it. How does that affect your efforts now to prosecute?
Good question. Look, in evaluating whether to bring charges, we obviously look at all the evidence that's both incriminating and exculpatory. All that gets turned over to defense lawyers. Mr. Farwell will be well represented in this case, and those facts will be put out in front of a jury. We are confident that when all the evidence is presented to a jury, if it gets that far, that those issues will not prevent us from securing a conviction.
Have you done your own, have your own person do an autopsy?
We,
That's come to a different conclusion. I know there's another one out there that's already been reported on. but-
That's correct. There's an expert witness. I don't want to get into exactly what that person did or didn't because I don't want to mischaracterize it, but it's in the court documents. Who has a tremendous amount of experience in this field and has reached a different conclusion.
Just a couple more questions. And just to be clear, you're not going to comment on the other two officers who had sexual relations with these Birchmore?
That's correct.
How unusual is it for a police officer
It's probably highly unlikely he would know anything about a local Stoughton thing as he was a Boston PD officer.
to be charged with a capital offense involving sexual harassment?
It's unusual in my experience. I don't have a full handle on how often this has been done nationwide, but it's an unusual situation. And that's partly why it's so incredibly disturbing.
What else? Do you have any words of caution to departments that have police explorer programs based on what you learned from your investigation about how this was able to unfold?
Yeah, I'm going to stick to my swim lane. I'm not an expert on police explorer programs. And so I really don't have any intelligent answer to that question.
Thank you.
The two officers you just saw leaving the courtroom or court before he will be arraigned at 2:30 was I have to find it again. Sorry. It was lead investigator in the Sarah Birchmore case, John Fanning, and our good old friend Brian Tolley, who exited the courtroom before his arraignment at 2:30. Wasn't Brian Fanning the first one at the scene in the Karen Reed case? Funny how they and Tolley, our absolute. So Tolley and Fanning was at the courthouse today. Both of them were the lead or were investigating this case and found it as self-deletion. No length. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Nikolai, you're way behind. Yeah, FBI found 32,000 texts that Giorino said he couldn't find any of. Again, that's the magic of having the feds who's not connected to the local police department. What did we find out in the other case? Exculpatory evidence also came to light, but there were 3,700 pages of evidence in the Karen Reed case. We only heard parts of it. There must be more in there. And how long can Bev keep this out of the court? I hope they're scared because the next. Yes. Fanning was also the officer who was assigned to the Karen Reed jury. That's how I know his name. Thank you, Helen from Holland. He was the guy who was in charge of the jury. Why are all the same names, all the big players are connected to these two cases that the feds is looking at? And remember, to those Smurfs who will now fill TwitSwat with evidence that there's nothing in the Karen Reed case because Sarah Birchmore just happened a few months ago. They started looking and they found all of this. There's nothing. No. The feds don't bring a case to a grand jury in 2 months after a privately hired ME says, nope, this doesn't look like a self-deletion. They have been there. They have looked at this for a long time. You don't find 32,000 texts a Sunday afternoon where you're just sitting at home. Oh, by the way, my conviction after what's happening today is they started out with the Sarah Birchmore case, and then they started to see how much BS is going on around the MSP. But I don't know. That's just my tinfoil hat theory. All of it didn't spring from Karen Reed. Karen Reed got put into the pile of crap they were running through. That's why I'm saying all the Smurfs who's gleefully on Twitter now are saying, "Oh, everything's fine," and see, there's nothing. They never brought any charges. No, we know. Josh Levy said he didn't see the case in the same light that Morrissey's office did it. So again, it's yeah. That's just that's my opinion, man. And I can't prove it. It's just a feeling I have that they probably started maybe here, maybe somewhere else, and then they found out about the Karen Reed stuff. Every professional in law enforcement and prosecution seems to be trying to superglue the leaking dam that is about to burst in Massachusetts. We can only hope that this leaking will. Yeah. There's so much crossover. Exactly. Do we know when they started this invest? No. And that's why I'm saying don't listen to all the Smurfs who will now tell you, well, see, they started this when that privately hired ME said this isn't a self-deletion. They didn't start this case 3 months ago. No way, Jose. You can't tell me that. They were in town because of Birchmore. Then John was unalived. I don't know if they were there that early, because no, yeah, this happened a year before. I love that Karen took the scorched earth defense approach at the risk of getting corrupt, guilty verdict. She was like, expose the efforts. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But all the Smurf will now tell you, mass whole media and mafia, whatever her name is. Let's see if she goes to prison tomorrow. Will now tell you, well, they didn't do this with the Karen Reed case, so that's dandy. Let's get back to all of these lovely things. Farwell tried to prevent a Stoughton Police Department employee from further disclosing information about his crimes and immediately confronted Birchmore for sharing incriminating. Did I read this before? Oh, no. In the weeks before Birchmore's unaliving, Farwell previewed some of the steps he would take to prevent witnesses from disclosing information about his crimes. On January 20th, Farwell reacted angrily when person 5, then an employee of Stoughton Police Department, confronted him about a call she received regarding his illicit sexual relationship with Birchmore. Farwell directed person 5 to never mention the topic to him again and not to tell anyone else. Farwell then began frantically texting with Birchmore. He wrote, "You also told me no one knew about us. She claimed we are effing. You have no idea how bad what she did is. I literally can't believe this, even real life. Like, what else do I have to worry about now? Which other friend will do something tomorrow?" Within days of the foregoing text messages, Farwell was asking Birchmore to give him a key to her apartment, but to keep it secret. Within days, he was scoping out her closets and bathroom, and within 12 days, Birchmore was unalived. After unaliving Birchmore, Farwell repositioned her body and staged her apartment to make it appear that Birchmore had committed self-deletion. After unaliving Birchmore, Farwell moved her lifeless body and staged her apartment to conceal his crime by making it appear that she died by self-deletion. As described in more details in Exhibit A, notwithstanding the fact that first responders found Birchmore in a seated position with a strap around her neck and doorknob, Dr. William Smock determined that Birchmore's death was a homicide. Dr. Smock cited Birchmore's hyoid bone fracture, the patent imprint injury on her chest, abrasions on her nose, and the broken necklace, amongst other evidence, that led him to conclude, with a reasonable degree of medical and scientific certainty, that Birchmore's death was a homicide. These specific injuries and evidence are consistent with Farwell suffocating Birchmore by strangulation and then hanging her lifeless body from her closet doorknob, which he had inspected days earlier, to make it appear as if she took her own life. After the unaliving, Farwell searched for ways to conceal his year-long relationship with Birchmore and his communications with her on the day of the unaliving. After Birchmore's death, Farwell gave limited consent to search his personal cell phone to law enforcement officers who were investigating the unaliving. However, on February 9th, Farwell used his work cell phone to make and delete 2 Google searches. First, he searched for and deleted, "Can delete iMessage be recovered? Hi, Cellbrite." Cellbrite is a tool that forensic examiners use to extract data from cell phones. Then he searched for and deleted, "Can you revoke consent in Massachusetts?" After the murder, Farwell lied to Massachusetts State Police detectives. When Farwell met with Massachusetts State Police detectives who was investigating Birchmore's death, he lied to them. His multiple false statements reveal a deliberate effort to minimize his relationship with Birchmore and avoid consequences for his misconduct. Farwell falsely told detectives that his sexual relationship with Birchmore began in 2020. According to his own text messages with Birchmore, it actually began in 2013 when she was 15. Farwell falsely told detectives that he only had sex with Birchmore 2 or 3 times in the previous year. According to text messages, he had sex with her at least 10 times in the 13 months prior to her death. Farwell falsely told detectives that the last time he had sex with Birchmore were in October 2020, attempting to avoid suspicion about whether he was the father of Birchmore's unborn child. However, text messages indicated that Farwell met Birchmore to have sex after that date. Farwell falsely told detectives that he had not seen Birchmore in the week before her death. However, he visited her apartment on January 29th. Farwell falsely told detectives that he had been trying to distance himself from Birchmore. However, approximately 10 days before her death, he asked her for a key to her apartment and told her he would come over to give her hugs. About 3 days before her death, Farwell told her that he would engage in sexual activity with her. Additional evidence regarding the danger Farwell poses to the community. Farwell has a long track record of using physical and sexual violence. Text messages shows that the defendant physically abused Birchmore on at least 20 occasions in just the year before her death. Farwell sent Birchmore text messages stating that he would grab her throat, pin her down by her throat, squeeze her throat, or choke her during sexual activity. For example, less than 4 months before her death, Farwell told Birchmore that during their next sexual encounter, he was going to grab throat and say, shut the F up now or I won't pull out. In November 2020, Farwell told Birchmore, maybe I'll hold you down by your throat while I pound you. He then reflected on how tight he should squeeze, texting that he wanted her to feel like, oh my God, this is really happening and I can't stop it. Farwell's penchant for violence is confirmed by Birchmore's disclosures to friends that the defendant assaulted her in the weeks before her death. Additionally, text messages between Farwell and Birchmore's own journal entries reveal Farwell's efforts to punish her with violent sex acts. This violent sexual punishment started as early as 2013 and continued until 2020. The evidence indicated that the defendant used violent sex acts to punish Birchmore for getting bad grades, lying to him, or being sexually active with other people. The evidence indicates that Farwell's efforts to control Birchmore also included directing her to use her phone to share her location with him and admonishing her when she failed to do so. Farwell also demonstrated preoccupation with sexual assault in a number of ways. First, Farwell's texts with Birchmore include numerous discussions about him forcing her to engage in certain sex acts. Farwell asked Birchmore on multiple occasions to act as if he was raping her when they had sex. For example, in one text conversation on November 8th, Farwell told Birchmore that he enjoyed having sex with her. When Birchmore asked what would be perfect for him, he replied, you say no and make me take it. Full R word. Additionally, Birchmore's journals detail sexual violence that she suffered at the hands of Farwell as a means of punishment. Finally, Farwell's iCloud account contained images that confirmed his interest in domestic and sexual violence, including strangulation. For example, his iCloud contained the following: a meme containing a photo of a woman with tape over her mouth that stated, duct tape turning no, no, no into since 1942. An image that stated, when she says, choke me, daddy, and you get carried away, and now she's not here anymore. A screenshot of an image of a woman saying that she could not sleep, followed by a man choking her, saying, good night, B word. And a meme glorifying a person who unalives and sexually abuses someone who no one will miss. Well, the beauty of being a crime tuber. Am I sure I want to cover this case? Yeah, I like that burning feel of hatred in my stomach. Farwell has demonstrated sexual interest in little people. Farwell is a danger to kids. He committed statutory rape under Massachusetts law by having sex with Birchmore when she was 15. In text messages with Birchmore, he romanticizes the statutory rape by discussing the first time they knew they were going to have sex and his regret that they did not have sex earlier in 2012. And Farwell repeatedly disclosed to Birchmore his interest in having sex with. Jeez. Yeah, we can't say that. Via text message, Farwell asked Birchmore to pretend that she was 13 or 14 years old when they were having sex. He also had Birchmore join his sexual roleplay in which he posed as her older brother and simulated non-consensual family fun time. Thank you so much, Horace Bogatus. Thank you for hanging in there with us. Well, it's hanging by a thin thread right now because, oh my God, he's one of those people you really, really want to know or meet on a street. I don't condone any form of him running into any types of walls in prison. But I would love to see him do that coyote thing where the roadrunner removes the tunnel entrance so he just runs into a wall. Yep. What the actual? How about a bacon day? Well, not right now. She says, no way she was the first and only. No. As I say, when you like this kind of thing, you do it more than once. Yeah, no more jokes for today. He's a special kind of someone. He would rather go after this than pay for it. Hopefully, he just had male kids. I'm just saying. Yeah. Catapult into the sun. Worse than Adam Montgomery. Yes. It's well, I don't think he did it to Harmony. I think she got into the stash and OD'd. I see a pattern. So do I. I got to sack. It hurts my heart. It also makes me wonder how many others like him are in position of power. I really hope they are dragging the net very close to the bottom in Massachusetts right now. Yeah, I'm not afraid. J. Ray is way behind. Jess, can you remember the name of no, Marissa, can you remember the name of the lead investigator? Yes, this is the feds. The state Morrissey's office ruled this a self-deletion. Trooper Garino found no evidence on his phone because texts were deleted, so he couldn't find it. The feds found 32 or 37,000 texts. Keller was the name, Jerry. Lord Chippy connected to His Majesty Mr. Trebuchet, and then the remains into the sun. I didn't say no to Legos. I said I had Lego. Farwell is a firearms and explosive. This is just the sprinkling on the cake now. Now we get into the good part. Is a firearms and explosive expert with access to many pew-pews. Farwell has extensive training regarding firearms and explosives, having served in the Army and as an instructor for the Stoughton Police Department. He has a license to carry with 10 guns, pews registered to his address. Argument. The Bail Reform Act authorized the court to detain Farwell on 3 independent bases: danger to community, risk of flight, and obstruction. And this is a whole lot of case law. Blah, 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 blah. It's just case law, case law, case law, case law, case law. It's just a summary of the things they just went through. And in evaluating whether condition can reasonably be fashioned to eliminate the risk of danger, flight, and obstruction associated with releasing the defendant, the court must consider the nature and circumstances of the offense, the weight of the evidence, the defendant's history of personal characteristics, and the dangerousness. The court should detain Farwell pending trial. Farwell killed a young person to cover up his own crimes that he committed while he was employed as a police officer. That chilling act of obstruction of justice followed his previous attempt to destroy evidence. In addition, Farwell is violent. He used that violence both to harm his victim while she was alive and to obstruct justice by unaliving her. In the end, his conduct was all designed to avoid accountability for his underlying crimes, which should also give the court grave concern about whether he will appear for future proceedings. On this record, there are no conditions that can reasonably assure the court that Farwell will not harm others, obstruct justice, or flee to avoid the consequences in this case. Accordingly, the court should detain him pending trial. Farwell is a danger to the community. Case law. Oh, we have. As a threshold matter, a murder unaliving charge weighs substantially in favor of finding future dangerousness. Affirming decisions not to reopen a detention hearing for a defendant. This is just case law. Here, the defendant took another person's life. That singular act demonstrates the risk that his release poses to the entire community. But there's more to it. The evidence set forth in detail in Exhibit A describes the manner in which Farwell committed the unaliving. He got a key to her apartment. He inspected the apartment to find the ideal place to commit the crime. He showed up during a snowstorm when he knew he would have hours or days before Birchmore would be missed at work. He arrived wearing a mask to disguise his appearance. He quickly strangled her, choking off her air supply until she perished. He moved her body and tied a duffel bag strap to the closet doorknob to make it look like Birchmore had done it to herself, and he quickly left her apartment. That crime required planning and a unique willingness to take risks to cause irreversible harm. Release conditions cannot safeguard the community against a defendant who has displayed these type of commitment to harming others. Second, Farwell unalived Birchmore after engaging in DV. The Second Circuit has acknowledged willingness to strike loved ones offers probative evidence of a tendency to violence and dangerousness towards others. In fact, a study found that a single episode of strangulation was associated with a 750% increase in the risk of becoming a victim of a completed domestic unaliving in all ethnic groups. Here, not only did Farwell choke Birchmore doing smacks on several occasions, but in the weeks prior to her death, she reported to friends that he assaulted her when they were discussing her pregnancy. Farwell's interest in and glorification of violence towards women was clearly displayed in the images agents recovered from his iCloud account. Third, The court should have heightened concerns about the dangers Farwell presents because of his extensive experience with weapons and the 10 pew-pews that are registered in his name. Farwell had pew-pew training in the military and during his law enforcement career, plus he had sufficient expertise to serve as a firearms instructor for other law enforcement officers. Fourth, Farwell is a danger to children. Unlike many exploitation cases in which there is no evidence on hands-on sexual contact with children here, Farwell enticed and sexually abused Birchmore when she was 15. Indeed, he wrote a text stating that he wished he had sex with her even earlier. Moreover, text messages showed that Farwell maintained his sexual interest in children for years. He wanted Birchmore to pretend to be 13 or 14 years old when they had sex, and he initiated kid sex, family-loving role-playing that further confirms that he remains a danger to children, just as he was when he began grooming Birchmore more than a decade ago. Farwell remains a risk of obstruction. For at least 3 years, Farwell may have believed that he had gotten away with unaliving Sandra Birchmore. Now that he has been charged with some of the evidence have been revealed, circumstances have changed. He now knows that if convicted, he faces a mandatory life. These new circumstances provide a great incentive for him to further obstruct justice. The court is in the unique position of having a wealth of information about what this defendant has done in the past when he believed there was a risk of criminal consequences. When Farwell feared that Birchmore might reveal information about his commission or possible commission of federal crimes, he unalived her. When a Stoughton police employee told him that she had received a call reporting aspects of Farwell's illicit sexual relationship with Birchmore, Farwell sprung into action, directing that employee not to talk about the information and frantically admonishing Birchmore for revealing information. Throughout the final year or two of Birchmore's life, Farwell directed her to delete communications that could incriminate him. When state police detectives interviewed Farwell, he lied to them. Farwell's track record, which include violence, intimidation, and dishonesty, strongly indicate if he released, he will continue to try and save himself by obstructing justice before trial. That could put many civilian witnesses at risk. Ultimately, release would pose a tremendous risk to the fundamental integrity of these proceedings. Mr. Meathook, is local news broadcasting the Farwell walk of shame like they did with Turtleboy? I bet not. No, they didn't. But I had the pictures of him being arrested because they have been released. I took them down. We'll probably get someone to put them on the Discord thingy. Thank you, Mr. Meathook. But and we can sadly not see the arraignment because it's federal court. They don't have a video feed. Daria, I won't be broadcasting. I will be ending before that and sending everyone over to the wonderful Brandy, and you can see the verdict in the Tellis case over there. Helena, we had that discussion in which case where they were charged with double unaliving because of the pregnancy. Yes, he should. I do believe there are many good cops. I know a few, but power of the bats make many think that they are better than many and can get away with more. Yes, and again, as we talked on about it during the entire Karen Reed case, the fish always rots from the head. Morrissey, what was his name, the old police chief, and the way down. It's all of them. And if you have bad bosses that gives you a bad work ethic, work environment, all the good guys will leave. and you will only keep the riffraff. I'll redirect to Brandy. Watch undercover underage. You'll be disgusted, but what is lurking around you? Brew Powell is amazing. Or just become a layman and have to deal with those cases. Luckily, I've just caught one in my 13 years. Yes, this must be really, really hard to read. I, for one, is going to text my kids after this and tell them Danny loves you. Farwell is a risk of flight. The defendant is also a risk of flight. The grave consequences, a mandatory life sentence that will result from a conviction, provides a strong incentive to flee. Case law. Farwell also presents a risk of self-harm given the nature of the charge. The corresponding mandatory life sentence and his access to and experience with pew-pews. Courts have held that defendant's risk of self-harm is an appropriate part of the court's assessment of whether the defendant is a risk of non-appearance. Conclusion. Based upon the foregoing, the government has met its burden to show that no conditions of release will reasonably assure the defendant's appearance, the safety of any person or the community, or the integrity of this proceeding. Accordingly, the government requests that the court order the defendant detained pending trial. The government further requests that if the court is inclined to release the defendant on condition, it stay its order for such time to permit the government to file a motion for revocation of the order to release under 18 U.S.C. 3145, subsection A. Joshua Levy, the acting United States Attorney. So, hopefully, the Sandra Birchmore trial will move forward now. I don't think this will be the only apple falling from the tree. We know that allegedly others were close to her. His brother, perhaps. I don't think this is the last arrest we see in this. And I don't think this is the last bad apple found in the barrel that is Massachusetts State Police, Stoughton Police, Canton Police, whatever else police you do have in Massachusetts. This seems to be an epidemic of absolutely horrible cops we have seen during this year. I knew nothing about Massachusetts other than Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch came from Boston. And now this is really opening my eyes to how bad it is up with where you are. And probably somewhere else, I don't know. But is this the top of the iceberg, or is this the entire snowball? I can't believe it's just a single snowball. I believe this is the top of the iceberg. They probably went after him, trying to crack him to spill the beans on more people. I think a lot of people tonight have been checking for flights to Aruba. Maybe North Korea with no extradition. So, yeah. How does half the country figure this case out before law enforcement does? Because I can speculate all I want. They have to prove it. And you should ask, why didn't they figure it out locally? Why did they need the feds? Massachusetts State Police is the epidemic. Yeah. And Colbretti is the cure. That's a movie reference. You won't get, Jamie, because you're too young. Lots of apple analogies there, Baker. This is the season here in the Northeast. Yeah, and I like good apples. If you can get away with what? Philia for 8 years, I'd say the minor is rampant beyond rampant in the mass. Yes. A lot of bad things out there. Microdots. It's becoming clear that Trooper Nick Garino's most important job requirement as the digital forensic analyst for the Mass State Police was to not find certain data. Exactly. This is really, really clear that either they hire totally incompetent people or they hire people who are really good at doing this when they're looking for evidence. And sadly, I think a lot of the cops who got a big paycheck, because I saw that those wages they pay, I would rather be a mass trooper than be a YouTuber. I can't make those kind of money that they can make, and they can get so hammered on the job that they forget where they put their pew pew. But I'm gonna go bleach my brain with something, and I look like I got a tan. It's because my nightlight went on my screen when it became 8 o'clock. Well, he just didn't look for it. But I'm gonna send you all over to Brandy so you can enjoy her, because she's not reading horrible stuff like I am, and you can see Tillis get his sentence or his conviction, whatever it is. Remember, show her some donatas in El Chato. Where's Jamie? Jamie is working. But go show show Brandy some of your muffins.
What exhibit are you referring to?
I'm going to make this 100, Your Honor.
All right.
100.
100.
Because it is 100%
100%.
correct.
Objection, Your Honor.
So you literally built a cannon?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
All right, I'm in love.
Go back. Please do that again. Oh, that was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
While I'm waiting for this, did you